This is Geralt, a monster hunter for hire, womanizer and just a nice guy. While jogging, Geralt runs out of reasons to live and falls on the ground. He hears voices behind calling him, but he doesn't have the energy left to answer, because running 100 meters for an alcohol and drug abuser is a death sentence. Those people call themselves friends, who are taking him to Kaer Morhen, a local rehab. Owners of this rehab are witchers, Vesemir, Eskel, Lambert and a witcher who hasn't gone through mutations, Leo. Vesemir is the oldest and most experienced witcher, who is in charge of other witchers from the School of the Wolf. To be more accurate, he teaches those ones who survived monsters, raging cuckolds and ambushes on their castle for different reasons. Geralt is looking at 4 men from the balcony, when Triss strikes up a conversation. She is a witch who is kind and big-hearted enough not to be one. Turns out dementia hits hard the old witcher in his 70s, so Geralt doesn't remember anything from his past except pirouettes, moves and parries. But there are positive sides, experiencing everything anew. Something scares off crows, and Triss feels danger coming upon them. Lambert feels it too and goes to check what's happening at the gates. 3 goons wearing salamander marks are saying about a professor who promised 50 coins of orens, the local currency, for every witcher they kill. Standing against Lambert means they will die poor. Lambert closes the gates as bandits ambush the castle. They hear the gates explode. It's elite mage Savola, who controls the mind of a frightener, the beast which is 5 times bigger than a human and 0 times uglier than a regular witcher. There is another thug, the professor, the assassin for hire. He is under command of a dungeon master and a half-time bodybuilder for 300 bucks, whose intentions are unknown. But Triss feels immense magic power inside him. There are too many bandits, so the witchers and Triss must split up. I can choose between 2 ways: stay and fight the frightener with Lambert, Eskel and Vesemir, or go with Leo to entertain him while dancing with Savola in the magic circle. I choose the mage and we jump around in the ring of magic fire. Savola bought precious time at the cost of his life, therefore the dungeon master and the professor are already in the lab packing things. Geralt finds out that bad guys pursue 2 goals. First is to steal ancient alchemical ingredients and scrolls on how to create a witcher, and the second goal is to find out whether witchers can parry bolts in flight. They can. I mean Leo can, as he is an incomplete witcher. The professor shoots at any witcher's vital part of a body, the groin. The dungeon master creates a portal and jumps into it. The professor follows him, escaping the battle with the famous Geralt. The scrolls and Leo's life are taken away. When Kaer Morhen is cleaned from the goons, Triss is found wounded. The witchers teach Geralt basic elixirs on how to heal the witch's injuries. After her recovery, they cremate Leo's body and say last goodbyes, promising to revenge. They split up to find executors with salamander signs. Vesemir, Eskel and Lambert go different ways to leave all work to Geralt, and Triss with Geralt go to Vizima to make a splash there. Triss goes to the portal and leaves the amnesia victim alone to find the way to Vizima. A boy Alvin and his foster mother Caroline are going to the village. A rainy night with ominous music playing in the background, which means nothing good. Indeed, a second later they see spirit dogs who are eating the unlucky traveler. Caroline commands Alvin to run at full speed back to the village. He's fast enough to make it, but sadly his mother isn't. Guards close the gates behind the boy and he falls on the ground, hiding his tears in the rain. Shani, a professional medic from Oxenfurt Academy, sees Geralt, who surprisingly found his way to the village nearby Vizima. After she puts him in the picture, soldiers want to open the gates and save Caroline, but the witcher commands them not to risk other lives and pray for Caroline, as she is already the opposite of alive. Alvin, after experiencing such a tremendous shock, has a mental breakdown. The air around him glows blue and he starts levitating. His voice is changing, saying about the time of the white frost and white light, when the world will perish amidst the ice and be reborn with the new sun by the elder blood. Shani explains to Geralt Alvin's gibberish, which is the old elven prophecy of Etlina, while Alvin is lying behind struggling from seizures. Also she says about the dogs. The villagers call them the beasts, and the local reverend might know more. Shani's initial goal was to help plagued people in Vizima's hospital. Then the beast showed up, which led to havoc, and so she decided to stay for a while and help the wounded. Geralt's initial goal was to remember the goal itself, then to get laid with every waitress, nurse and witch around, to collect the naughty cards. Ah yeah, sure, and slay monsters. To get under the green skirt, he needs to help villagers to get rid of the beast So, here is the deal. The Reverend prays to the eternal fire, a newly founded cult of worshippers. He claims the beast and the plague were the reactions to their sins. The other day he gathered up all people and claimed to clean their houses, taking away all the filth and sins with him. I suppose by the filth and sins he means money, valuables and small boys. The Reverend knows something about Salamandra, but he won't say anything until the beast is banished, because once another witcher, Berengar, showed up, took the money and vanished. So now the Reverend proposes to visit 5 altars and leave offerings there, as they did before. As far as you can see, it never worked. And it never will. So the answer is somewhere else, yet hidden from Geralt's eyes, because they see only girls. After the mission is completed, the Reverend finds another reason for the beast's appearance, a local witch Abigail. She agreed to look after prodigy Alvin. She wanted to know his real power and asked Geralt to find 5 myrtles to brew a potion. When it's done, Alvin's inner devil creature speaks again and says that the beast was summoned by evil deeds of some villagers. So Geralt has to find the evildoers and warn them not to do it again, or he will satisfy all women around like nobody ever will. So they will be getting under every guy's skin and asking for a real man. The village's another big deal is Odo. He agrees to drink with Geralt and spit some facts out. He used to have a brother, a former soldier, very rich, but one night Odo killed him in his sleep to inherit all his wealth. But Odo was never found guilty. However, Odo's brother didn't want to go away so fast, and the monstrous plant was born on the grave where the brother was buried, as a reminder of the unpunished crime. In a few words, Odo is a full-time distrustful, stingy drinker, but he has money to play poker dice. Before leaving, he adds that he saw the beast being summoned near Abigail's hut. Traveling around the village looking for trouble, Geralt sees bandits who surrounded a dwarf. One dwarf against 5 hoodlums seems fair. However, I step in to give a hand or a sword. It's Zoltan Chivi, one of Geralt's best friends, who hasn't seen the Witcher for 5 years, as he used to think the White Wolf was dead, or rather killed by a peasant with a pitchfork. Zoltan doesn't ask much about Geralt's past because CD Projekt Red had paid him to keep his mouth shut, to keep all cards unrevealed. The dwarf came to the village looking for his friend, who has been lost. He feels Scoia'taels, aka the Squirrels, might know something. Scoia'taels are non-human rogues who fight for freedom and rights in a world occupied by humans. They play as big part as Geralt. I would say they are in the same boat in some way. Then I paid 20 orens for this clapping bard. On the way to complete one side quest and bury remains of a person, I go to the basement of the Reverend. He has a tiny tomb in there, like everybody else does. After the task is done, the king of the Wild Hunt appears behind. He says about Geralt's destiny, which must be fulfilled, so he will be waiting. I think now I should explain what happens. In the beginning, Geralt was running from the Wild Hunt, because 5 years ago he had been killed in Rivia by an angry peasant mob. Although Yennefer was trying to heal him, she lost too much power and nearly killed herself. She managed to save the Witcher though. That's when Ciri stepped in and teleported the couple into a pocket dimension to let them recover and live their lives. The Wild Hunt found them there and abducted Yennefer to draw Ciri out of hiding, making Geralt chase them through dimensions, ending up in his own world. There, pursuing the Wild Hunt, he finds a group of them and trades his life for Yennefer's, riding with the Wild Hunt for some time. Then Ciri saved him and he immediately lost his memory as a fee for quitting the Wild Hunt and co. Next, he was spotted running away from the Wild Hunt collectors near Kaer Morhen, where Lambert and Vesemir found him almost naked and sober first time in his life. That's where Witcher 1 begins. Next, local guard Mikul asks to find his missing girlfriend Ilza. She's found inside the crypt, poisoned to death by a mysterious potion. From the guard's words, Abigail brewed the poison for Ilza. All fingers point at Abigail, so I go to speak with her, and she claims that Mikul teamed up with local criminals and together they violated Ilza, so the girl asked for a poison to take her own life. Abigail has never asked questions about the usage of such potions, she simply tried to make ends meet. She may be the best liar in the world or just wants to survive. Anyway, first I need to speak with the Reverend. The Reverend gives up saying where to find Salamandra's gang.
Go to the inn, where a group of Salamandra's until you eliminate the beast. Service is taken over. The shepherd must bring them back unto the righteous. No. See you later.
He promises to gather up all villagers to find the guilty and eliminate the beast after Geralt clears the place out of Salamandra. The gang is at the inn where Shani is. Before the sword dance, one of the bandits proves words of Abigail, that Ilse was sexually assaulted by them and Mikul. Here I get my sword and close my eyes for a few seconds. Later in their den, they ask for a tribute to go inside. By the tribute they mean kids. Remember I said about the reverend who stole small boys? I wasn't kidding. I'll show you my tribute. From the house a secret passage to the cave, where other goons are hiding. Their leader mocks Geralt for working for murderers, rapists and child traffickers, saying about the advice they gave to Odo, about the best way how to put to sleep a professional warrior forever. He also mentions their boss's name, Azar Javed, a mighty Zerikanian sorcerer. Geralt does what he's best at, killing the monsters. Those bastards were hiding children, with Alwyn among them. He was sent here by the Reverend. The boy overheard goons saying about shipping children to Vizima, the city corrupted by plague. When all the bandits are sent to the afterlife, it's time to sentence the people responsible for the beast. Who will it be? Odo, the Reverend, Mikul or Abigail? But wait a second, there is a flimsy wall leading somewhere. Guys, open champagne! Abigail is not guilty. I found the source of the beast and I sentence all of you to death. In fact, Geralt gives the villagers a choice.
You have two options. Wait until I leave and then murder Abigail, but then I'll come back. I'll slay every lice-ridden peasant, anything that moves and can't climb a tree. Or you can try to lead honorable lives, clear your conscience, start again, like humans. The choice is yours.
Plebs step back and Geralt takes Abigail to her home. Where is Alwyn again? Why nobody cares about him? The concentration of miseries and crimes attracts the beast itself. When the ghost dog is done, the rest of the brave villagers step in to finish off the wounded witcher and witch. Little did they know, Geralt doesn't like going shopping. So he'd stolen all food and elixirs around, and he is fully recovered now, therefore either he will be their Grim Reaper or starvation. He finds the path to Vizima and goes to Mikul. Mikul and his guards arrest him for being a counterfeiter of city passes and for being Geralt.
Son of a bitch.
Boys and girls, I give you the city dungeon.
Abso-fucking-lutely beautiful.
One way or another, Geralt is inside the city, as he intended, so he's not arrested. But everything and everybody is following his plan. The professor is sitting in the cell nearby. Having strings to pull, he's set free.
You're making a mistake. This man's a murderer.
You fail to grasp the basic rules governing this world. You're a genetically modified murderer with no place in modern society. But we'll tend to that problem next time. Farewell.
In the cell I can play dice or engage in a fist fight. Whoever wins will have a chance to be thrown to the sewers, to be eaten by a cockatrice, or if you are Geralt, kill the beast and be a completely free mutant as a reward. So Geralt and
That tub of lard?
fight for freedom. I let him win to see what happens next.
Wow.
As the previous contestant is out of the game, Vincent Mice, a head of city guards, sends Geralt next to check what happened down there. He gives a silver sword of another witcher who had been here before and promised to deal with the cockatrice. In the channels, Geralt encounters Siegfried, a knight of the Order of the Flaming Rose, a nobleman of some moral code and kind heart, and a fugitive from the fashion police. He is to kill the cockatrice too. They team up and Siegfried holds the torch as Geralt does all the dirty work. When they're heading to the exit, assassins come after the Witcher's head, and Siegfried seems to know a detective who might help to track down Salamandra's leader. The knight and the Witcher depart for a while, but establish firm friendship. The noir private investigator Raymond Marlowe has personal reasons to give Geralt a hand and find murderers of his family, who he believes were Salamandra.
As a professor, just so happens, I've heard it. Usually I charge for information.
Free? It's a deal, man. First, Geralt needs to find threads which lead to Azar. The suspects are the captain of the guard, who disappears at nights, Vincent Mice, and an injured prisoner who might know something about Salamandra's leader. The next morning at the dungeon, Mice doesn't say anything about why and who paid for the professor. However, during the dialogue he mentions the warehouse Geralt has to stay away from. Then Jethra, the jailer, spits out some priceless information on Mice, who had talked with Thaler, a local fence, before the professor was freed. He also says about the prisoner who has something to do with the Salamandra's case, but he was relocated to the hospital nearby. Jethra's tongue is loosened as he does an enormous amount of highly addictive white powder called Fistek. Then he says about the philanthropist who pays for Salamandra's badges in the Hairy Bear Inn. Did somebody say inn, where feces are spread on the walls, drunk lubbers fight for money and beer mixed with piss? Never in my life would I step there ever again. So, the philanthropist, well, look, I did my best, but he's nowhere to be found. Instead, I found a dwarf whose name is Zoltan Chivi. He claims to be an old friend of Geralt. Well, he is one, as long as he pays for the drinks. Then, after binge drinking, Geralt gets a luxurious room for 5 or... Hey, a dog's rock? That's what the Witcher deserves? Next, Geralt shows up at the warehouse Maze was speaking about. There, the captain wheedles information out of Salamandra's mercenary, who was promised to be taken out of the game in exchange for information about Azar Javed. Unfortunately for the mercenary, he doesn't know anything useful. Besides, he was involved in the case of Raymond's family disease. Therefore, fortunately for the bloodthirsty white wolf whose mouth already waters and who has been waiting in the corner for too long, draws his sword. In fact, Maze freed the professor because his bail was paid, so he just obeyed the law. But he keeps his track day and night. Next is the fence, Thaler. The slick snake claims he pays guards for protection against Salamandra, and he has nothing to do with the professor. Wait a second. Never mind. I was running out of leads, so I hit another visit to the Hairy Bear. At the entrance, Geralt meets a person who calls himself Zoltan Chivi. He keeps Geralt good company as they speak about philosophy while drinking exquisite beverages.
Which are pigs? Are so desirable.
No shit.
Ever considered marriage, Geralt?
Listen, Zoltan. Witchers exist to slay marriage.
Congratulations, virgin.
True enough. I suggest we drink heavily, if that doesn't help.
Pigs.
Go on.
So Geralt made himself a new friend. They had some fun until the evening. That's when the philanthropist, or rather his messenger, showed up. Geralt needs to find his employer, so he says,
Bruh. Shove off. Shove off. Shove off.
Alright, I made a mistake by choosing the wrong lines and wanted to find a common language. Besides violence, Geralt is native in another language, drinking, so I made the offer the messenger couldn't refuse. The best red wine around. That's when they started to speak the same language. Turns out he works for Declan Lewarden, a wealthy merchant Geralt had helped once in Vizima's outskirts. The merchant wants to see 3 Salamandra badges as the proof that Geralt has a grudge against them too. Giving him the proofs, he coughs up a few coins and tells that he will sneeze up more, much more orange if Geralt dismantles Salamandra. The reasons behind his decisions are transparent. Salamandra stand in the way of mysterious forces and it's bad for businesses, so he wants them to disappear one way or another. Lewarden is innocent too. Geralt ran out of clues. That's when dementia stepped back and Geralt remembered one last suspect, the injured prisoner. He is in the Saint Lebioda's hospital. Inside it looks mournful. Due to the plague, patients are 1 footstep away from the afterlife. They are asking gods for mercy. Oh look, fancy gloves! The prisoner says only one name, Kalkstein. Before Ramsmith's henchmen come over the prisoner's head, 2 more suspects to deal with. I confused the doors and entered the door next to Kalkstein's, Vivaldi's apartments. Don't skip it, he's a part of the main story. You see, although Vivaldi is a bank owner, he's a dwarf, and in Vizima, anybody who is too short or with pointy ears, or an old silver-haired drunkard with dementia is considered a lowlife, and city guards found evidence against Vivaldi showing his connections with Scoia'taels. So now they put him in the prison and confiscate everything that belongs to him. I go out and enter Kalkstein's apartments. The alchemist wants to discover the secrets behind the sorcerer's tower in the swamps for 1000 orens. For doing so, he needs rare, almost forgotten books about this sorcerer. One of the books is kept as a treasure by Vivaldi, who is now in prison. That's where Geralt can get 2 birds by paying a coin once. In the dungeon, Jethro demands 200 orens for Vivaldi's freedom. When the bail is paid, Geralt asks for the books, so Vivaldi can't help but agree. Then Geralt hands the book over to Kalkstein to gain his trust and be one step closer to 1000 orens. The alchemist says he paid the wounded prisoner to guard him against Salamandra goons, because the prisoner worked for Ramsmith. Also, he paid Berengar to find those towers in the swamp. But once again, after taking money, the Witcher vanished. It seems this Berengar is aimed at smashing the Witcher's reputation. Well, Kalkstein just paid money for work, nothing to blame him for. Next is Ramsmith. Ramsmith explains that the ambush in the hospital was meant to take his men back, but the Witcher happened, and the bad guys got moved from the hospital to the morgue. However, he doesn't hold a grudge against Geralt, as the enemy of Ramsmith's enemy is the Witcher, who is a killing machine, therefore a friend. This king of the underworld can't stand Salamandra, as they are basically his competitors on the market of fish tech. They are taking over Vizima and eliminating his men, so he'd gladly help Geralt find this Azar and throw him down. When all suspects are crossed out from the list, Geralt pays a visit to Raymond. The investigator is cornered by Salamandra, and Geralt helps. Raymond wants to lay low somewhere and continue the investigation from his secret place. He runs from the house, and I use this opportunity to steal his parrot. Sadly, I cannot do it, but Raymond is lying on the bed. Well, is that what he meant by saying he wants to lay low? When Geralt approaches him, the talisman starts vibrating. Besides, Raymond is asking for 200 orens for his work. The conversation ends to nothing. Raymond asks for money, Geralt suspects him right away and stops speaking. The first second Geralt goes outside, a delivery boy sends him a message to go and see Raymond. He has something to tell. Alright. Inside, Raymond is at the table, eating. And what do we have here? A box of fish stack nearby him. Somebody must have forgotten it. I need to take it back to the owner. So the thing he wanted to say is that the wounded prisoner was killed, and Geralt has to find out how and why. The detective is sure Geralt can turn up to Shani for help to conduct an autopsy. He knows that they are good friends. Due to his profession, he needs to keep his eyes open all the time, as he says. Now he smells fishy. Shani is at the hospital, and she is reluctant to conduct the autopsy at first, but agrees if they do it secretly at night in her room. Easier said than done, because the landlady is an old hag and doesn't let Geralt in.
Beast. Get out!
But Geralt's got a degree in alcoholism and teaches her his craft. They drink a little, find a common language, and he enters Shani's room. Ah, I see. That's why she didn't want to do the autopsy in the hospital, but only at nights. After the autopsy, I get a new level and new perks to choose from. Then they speak about the wounded prisoner. She will help Geralt, but he lacks knowledge. Therefore, he must find some books on how to interpret wounds on a body. Not a big deal for the Witcher, who identifies monsters by injuries on people. There is another problem. The body is already in the grave, so Geralt needs to visit Vizima's graveyard. There he goes to the crypt, where all of a sudden he finds the body of Raymond. That's what he calls investigation. I see. The game notes tell that another Raymond is Azar Javed. Well, it explains why he asked for money. Anyway, Geralt needs to play the fool, otherwise he will face the mage, and Geralt is not ready yet. Shani and Geralt performed the autopsy on the poor Ramsmith's henchman. Before his death, he had been stabbed, poisoned, the piano fell on him, and then doing fish tag, he received tsetse fly eggs in his brain, which later hatched and, well, ate him from inside, a favorite trick of the Ricanian warriors. Everything points at Azar Javed. Now Geralt is sure that real Raymond is gone forever, so he needs to act smart. He hysterically knocks at every door and warns everybody that Raymond is Azar. The Ricanian mage almost outplayed Geralt by setting him against all the important people around. Now the investigation is changed to the witch hunt. Kalkstein is sure Azar takes his powers from fire, so they need to find a place with an opposite element of water to weaken him. It means the best choice would be the swamps. Next, Geralt needs to come up with a way to entrap Azar in the swamps. He delivers bad news about the autopsy, that unfortunately he took the wrong vial and vaporized the body out of existence. You know, bad days happen. Azar is surely happy to hear that. He even has another plan to ambush Ramsmith, because you see, he is the leader of Salamandra, and Geralt has to kill him. Great plan, man, great. To secure Ramsmith, Geralt advises him to lay low and then goes back to Azar with a great plan. This time the Witcher needs the help of Raymond. He says about the tower in the swamps, which keeps ancient powerful books about teleportation. The tower is locked by keystones and guarded by a golem, so together they will lure Azar Javed to the tower once Geralt opens it. This battle might be the last for the Witcher, so he lets his hair down like there is no tomorrow. Good for him, Dandelion comes to Vizima, the most famous bard and the best friend of Geralt. Additionally, Shani offers her place for the party, so Geralt invites his friends there. Dandelion, Shani and who's that guy? He says his name is Zoltan Shivi, so nice to meet you, I guess. Though he already knows Geralt somehow. Well, actually I don't mind, why not, come in. They have fun trying the best booze around, and Dandelion tells stories of Geralt's adventures. A dragon friend Borch and a piece of story of how Geralt died. However, the Witcher can't remember what exactly happened there. Looks fun, amusing and all, but this background music keeps my sphincter clenched.
So, as I was saying, unlike the lesser ones, higher vampires don't need blood.
Eventually they run out of food and Geralt is sent to steal some lard and pickled cucumbers from the old hag downstairs. And then obviously he gets caught. The landlady kicks him out to sober up. In case you are playing this, walking sideways is faster when you are drunk. Being sober again after meditating in a tavern, he comes back. And then he gets hammered one more time. That's when Dandelion plays the best song I've ever heard.
Ow, 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 ow.
After the party, everybody leaves the place. The bard knows what's coming. Geralt says his thanks. Frankly speaking, I cut out a huge chunk of content from the swamps. There are a lot of quests to do, but only a few impact the story. First, this Dryad. Yep, she is completely naked. And second, a minor clash between troops of the Order of the Flaming Rose, led by Siegfried, who was promoted in the ranks, and one of Scoia'tael's leaders, Yevin, who is a key character. I have to choose between aiding Scoia'tael or giving a hand to Siegfried once again. Without hesitation, I joined the Order, and only when all Scoia'taels were composted in the ground and their wallets emptied, I opened my eyes and saw the facts. I helped the knights only because of Siegfried and his noble nature, but their philosophy is far from bearable. They dream about a world without non-humans because they believe the human race had been here before the conjunction of spheres happened, when other races and monsters invaded the world. Such dogmas might lead to a few outcomes: endless conflicts and outrages. And then, when the Order runs out of non-humans, monsters and other mythical creatures, they will come after Geralt, which means he won't be able to collect all erotic cards and drink all alcohol. Even his "oops guys, I've got dementia, I'm not a threat to you" will not work anymore. At the same time, Yevon's point of view was too radical. Taking all money from Vivaldi, as his obligation is to support non-human races because he's a dwarf, looked like a racket to me. Well, decisions were made. At least Scoia'tael's money will be invested in a new armor. By completing quests, I could activate stones that block the magician's tower. Raymond, Azar Javed, Marlov is already waiting there. He tries to backstab Geralt, but nobody can backstab the Witcher and get away with that. Geralt strikes, but misses, because Azar is not stupid. He teleports behind, sets the tower on fire, because as you remember, he sources power from fire and then summons the professor.
To feel comfortable. Fire mage is limited. He needs me to do the wet work.
Can you repeat that, please? Developers designed this battle almost impossible, even on medium difficulty. In fact, it's not. However, Geralt was heavily injured and the next day woke up in heaven. In Triss's bed. When Geralt hasn't returned back to Kalkstein's lab, the alchemist sent Triss to find the Witcher. That's where she found him unconscious. She teleported him to her chamber and let him rest. In exchange for help, she asks to investigate the case of anomalies around the city. Geralt must place 3 magical stones around the city and track the source of anomalies. Also, she invited Geralt to an exclusive event next evening, where all cream of society will show up. Sure thing, but first I had to prepare for the next encounter with Azar, or the professor, and collect my reward from Kalkstein for helping him with the tower. So I moved back to Vizima swamps, where I'd come from. There, Kalkstein established teleports between the tower and his lab, which saves plenty of time and, more importantly, 5 orens, because you see, I have to cough up some money for the armor. There in the swamps, I found the camp of Salamandra and a pass to Temple Quarter from the king of these lands, Foltest, and a ciphered letter. I pay a visit to Druid's Grove to see beautiful sights. Yavin interrupts me and shares his new plans on how to make a fortune and relocate to Seychelles for good. Luckily, he doesn't have hard feelings for Geralt. His wise speeches make you believe he is walking this earth for a few hundred years for sure, and he's seen every sort of hardcore stuff. Yavin lives this kind of life because of his past. He'd been trying to assimilate with humans for years, during which he'd been robbed, beaten and cheated. Humans couldn't accept who he is, so he went Breaking Bad. Here is the inevitable dilemma I believe any long-lived creature would face. The longer they exist, the more often they see violence, injustice and stupidity, therefore making them cold-blooded and black-hearted. Like doctors who tell it won't hurt and then inject 10-feet needle into your ass while laughing and recording it for TikTok. This time Yavin wants to rob a bank. He hires Geralt, who's been stealing women's hearts for ages, which automatically makes his experience useful for a bank heist. Why do I agree?
Money!
They have to prepare first and find a way out of the bank without slaughter. Coming back to Vizima, Geralt meets a Carmen, a prostitute. She whispers that her constant boyfriend is a werewolf, and she is looking for the cure at the Druid's Grove. The way is long and dangerous, and I've never seen such a marvelous creature, a fallen-in-love hooker, so I giggled yes. To assist and do everything myself. I'll leave the curse later, as it's already evening and I have the event to attend. There, Triss got dressed up, and can't wait to see the embarrassment on a sweaty monster hunter's face covered in blood. Geralt feels out of place and only Thaler, the fence, who is dirty and sweaty enough, can understand the Witcher. After another drink, turns out Thaler is a spy, working on Foltest and is currently in charge of Vizima while Foltest is away. He's here because he's sure somebody in this place is Salamandra's patron. And there is Adda the White, the princess who once was saved from a Striga curse by Geralt himself. Anyway, she was relatively normal after recovery, being obsessed with raw meat, uncooked yolks and big dicks. Her personal puppy Count Duet is a bigot of the Flaming Rose.
Get out of my sight, freak!
Who is on guard of her celibacy and overall joy of life. Long story short, Geralt got late with Ada. When the party is over, Geralt comes outside to order a taxi, but suddenly notices some fight between Thaler and Duet. Thaler accuses Duet of counterfeiting the royal edict, whereas Duet is eager to kill Thaler for such accusations. Well, nobody dies tonight because I can choose to get rid of only Thaler. Yet, we share the common past of drinking gallons of the best wine, and eliminating Duet is not an option. The game simply doesn't let me do it, so everybody comes home safe and sound. Then, in the morning, at the inn, Luwarden helps me to decipher the letter I'd found in the swamps. It gets clear how and where to find Salamandra's hideout. Outside the inn, a message boy calls for the Witcher's help because somebody is robbing a bank. Siegfried is out there ready to have a ball, but I choose the Witcher's way, get all the goods and put the blame on others. I persuade Siegfried to stay out of the fight and give me a chance to negotiate with Scoia'tael. Yavin, what a surprise! After a short talk, he explains he didn't need money, he is here for Vivaldi's documents to his bank. I'll translate what he means. Geralt is going to feast from trash bins at night for the next few weeks. Well, the Witcher, Geralt and I had already prepared the way out before the heist, but unexpectedly Kikimors are blocking the way, which appeared out of the blue and their natural habitat. somebody else is involved. By and large, Vivaldi will get his bank back, Yevin a place to stay and funding, Siegfried a butthurt, and Geralt a friendly slap on his back. Next, I follow the lead from the deciphered letter and prepare for the ambush on Salamandra's hideout. They lovely chat with somebody in the mirror. Geralt wants to know who their patron is, and the person in the mirror is the king of Redania, Radovid V. He's got acquainted with Salamandra through mutual friends. However, he refused to fund them, seeing them as street thugs. The king suspects somebody uses Foltest's edict to control the city.
Shh! Here's something in the corridor.
Geralt analyzes Radovid's answers and leaves him alone for now, but will have revenge on him for Leo if there is nobody else to find guilty. Stepping out of the hideout, Geralt sees Salamandra clones patrolling the street. One of them got separated from the group, and Geralt finishes his miserable life. He goes for the lives of others, and turning a corner, he sees the werewolf spending his free time the same way as Geralt. The creature seems to be sane and stops the bloodshed when a local merchant passes by.
Bonjour, you f***ing wanker.
As a rule, Geralt doesn't kill intelligent beings, and after a short chase, they confront face to face. Turns out the werewolf is Captain Vincent Mace, and he was helping Geralt. They exchange information, and the Witcher spares Vincent's life. Geralt finds his safe house. It turns out the captain was something of a bootleg Batman for the poor. It's time to see Carmen, a hooker, and speak with her about her man. The other day, a druid from the grove advised to find enough fool's parsley to weave a shirt and give it to Vincent to wear overnight. The next morning, Carmen is upset as the cure didn't work. Vincent transformed and ran off. I'm not ready to give up and want to make the couple happy. Kalkstein is another bright mind who might help. He prepares a potion to heal lycanthropy. There is only one trouble. The potion needs a key ingredient, a teardrop of a virgin. Well guys, we have a problem. Carmen is 100 times opposite of virgin. Luckily, any teardrop will do. Geralt embarks on a venture of looking for virgin's teardrops. Don't ask me how he did it. Maybe domestic violence took place. Maybe he gave the best ring in the world. Or maybe he banished a monster from nurse's basement where her insane mother lives in return for the nurse's teardrop. One thing we know for sure, after Geralt had shown up, there are no more virgins left. The next day after the potion was made and given away, Carmen stuttered that the potion didn't help. Geralt remarked that true love might turn beasts into men. Carmen listened and agreed to try. The next day the Witcher came back and heard the story of Carmen. That night Vincent and Carmen opened up to each other. Carmen spoke about how much she loves the captain and she is ready to do anything for him, even go into the swamps and overcoming fierce monsters and fear to help. And what's more, she would even learn how to embroider. Geralt, the therapist, wants to speak with Vincent too and put his priorities right. He explains that Vincent's strength at night will prevail one day and he won't be able to turn back into a human. So he must choose whether he loves his superpowers or Carmen. Well, the next morning Carmen rejoiced. Her man didn't turn into a beast after she told him how much she loves him. It even made him cry. After all, true love won and they lived happily ever after. The end.
And that's all.
Wait. Geralt has to continue his journey. He placed 3 magical stones around the city and Triss tracked down the source of anomalies. It was a boy named Alvin at St. Lebioda's hospital. Where, how and why? I've been there more often than Geralt drank spirits and Alvin wasn't there. Sure, it explains anomalies. Elder blood comes through his veins. The blood is so powerful that must be taken under control by Triss and only her. Shani is at white heat after hearing that Triss wants to take her favorite patient and commands Geralt to stay away from the witch. Sure, babe. I go to retrieve Alvin from the hospital, but Salamandra were faster. They kidnapped him and hid somewhere again. Luckily Dandelion, who was making love to a nurse, saw where the bandits took the boy. Indeed, there is Salamandra everywhere, and it seems they control the whole city. However, nothing can stop Geralt from saving the boy, who's been twice kidnapped, forgotten, left lying on the wet ground in pain, and lost his parents and the foster mother. But on the other hand, he was saved for one lucky shrink who will make a fortune on the boy's mental problems. Geralt brings the boy to Shani's house, where she'd look after him.
Honey, could you spend some time with Alvin? You're his only role model.
Geralt, teach me to sword fight?
No way.
I want a puppy.
Not now, Alvin.
I don't want to attend Oxenford University.
Right.
There are no signs of the landlady. I wouldn't be surprised if Alvin teleported her to the White Frost. I need to get back to Triss and tell her that the boy stays with Geralt's dominatrix, Shani. In return, Shani will show some of her magic.
Geralt.
Of course, Triss is furious to hear Geralt chose Shani over her, but can she cast this card? Despite cheating on Triss, she wants to help and find Salamandra once and for all. As Geralt thinks too loud, she has read his thoughts and found out about the person who might help. Thanks to Vincent and Llewellyn, they spied on Salamandras and found their location. When Geralt arrives to discuss details, he is ambushed by Salamandra and Vincent gives a hand to fight back. Then they come up with a plan. But suddenly Duet is breaking through the closed doors and demands to hand over the Witcher for cooperation with Scoia'taels. They have no time and Triss teleports both Geralt and Yavin to the enemy hideout. Luckily for Salamandra, during the teleportation Geralt and Yavin were separated at different ends of the cave, where amphibians live and train. Yet nothing can stop Geralt and he easily fights through the mob. They come to the elf's portal, through which they can summon more Scoia'taels and take advantage. And only 3 warriors come to fight, but I hope it's more than enough. I leave them behind to deal with Azar Javed and the Professor. Before the battle begins, Geralt and Azar discuss the evil nature of Salamandra and their goals, while everybody is patiently waiting behind. When the talk is over and Azar strikes, a spell cast by Triss pushes him back to the portal, but the Professor runs away. Scoia'taels stay behind the magic barrier and finish the rest of Salamandra, and Geralt must chase the assassin down. When they meet face to face, the Professor is sharing their plan to create new Witchers like warriors, stripped of emotions, ready to obey any command. Well, I don't know about the future, but for now there are no other Witchers except Geralt and his new sharpened sword. After a short fight, the Professor is on the ground. The bastard is too smart and shoots an arrow at Geralt to no avail. The next shot connects a bomb and explodes the floor, and both fall to a lower level. The Professor was smart and slick, but he couldn't outsmart the probability of the Witcher's sword accidentally hitting his heart. I would start celebrating, if not for the Kikimor Queen woken up by the explosion. The creature is as strong as ugly, and there is no way Geralt can fight it. Only run. He has to use a art to bring down beams behind him and stop the queen. It doesn't work and the creature easily goes through the obstructions, until Geralt gets to a room where he crashes a huge load of stones onto the queen's head. On the corpse of the queen, Geralt finds 2 letters. The first one is about the cooperation between Salamandra and Princess Ada. After lifting the curse, she was out of her mind and was reckless enough to play any game she wants at her whim, without considering the outcomes. So it means a reasonable amount of funding of Salamandra went from her to stage a coup and capture power, while her father Foltest is away. Did I tell you that she was a result of intercourse between a brother and a sister? The second letter is more importantly about Alvin, who was stolen from Shani again. After that, the boy was so scared or pissed off being kidnapped the 3rd time, he created a portal and teleported himself to a village called Murky Waters. Also, the Professor is a man of culture and insists Azar cease referring to Geralt as son of a bitch. I am sure he knew he would die and Geralt would find this letter. After reading, Geralt comes out of the cave and is immediately surrounded by Ada and her men pointing crossbows at him. The Witcher confesses the truth he learned, and before he is executed, he asks the princess for the last request, the final kiss. It's a sacred custom, so she agrees. By doing so, Geralt buys him some time to be teleported and therefore saved, perhaps by Philippa Eilhart, another very powerful witch. We see amazed peasants being hypnotized by a miraculous city that appeared from the lake. The view is so gorgeous, even I am impressed by how good a 2007 game can look at times, even though probably it's just a PNG picture. The portal opens in the air, and the hater of portals falls on the ground. Yet for the girl observing the view, appearance of Geralt isn't worth her attention. This girl claims she knows everything, so she sets the scene. In a nutshell, a wedding is coming, yet a love triangle between a bride and groom is too complex for me to comprehend, but this girl will explain it better than me.
Alina, the village chief's daughter, will soon marry. For gold. Mother also says Alina's sister Selena yearns for Julian. He's Alina's fiancé who lives at the inn. What does yearn mean?
She really likes Julian.
Oh, then Julian yearns for Alina, Selena yearns for Julian, and Alina likes Julian's gold but yearns for Adam.
Undeniably.
I know everything.
Is it clear? The submerged city is an ancient place of fish people who inhabited Vizima's outskirts. One of them lives here, a priest. He is rather friendly and adds a few details to the girl's picture. The conflict between villagers and fish people gains momentum, which might lead to confrontation over the water. He also says how to say the word Witcher in their language.
Which Malal Bul? Which Malal? Which my lord Bull? Bull must be. No, Bull mean idiot.
Another key person here is the Lady of the Lake. She's a goddess, and only fish people and her loyal knight can speak with her. To have a right to see her, Geralt kneels before her statue. And there is another witcher Geralt's been looking for, Berengar. He is at the crypt, disassembles ghouls. First, I wanna see the person who has kidnapped Alvin, and I've heard so much about. Here we go, notorious Berengar in person.
Oh my god, no way,
Geralt wants the truth, and Berengar easily shares it. Salamander once found him, put a dagger to his neck, and recommended to do what they want or else. He blames witchers for giving him no choice and making him another non-human creature that most folks are afraid of, and Salamandra, who made him a criminal. He couldn't deal with the absence of options, in so much that claimed himself a failure. That's why he gives away a contract to settle the conflict between fish people and villagers. Geralt has nothing to answer, as Berengar hasn't spit everything out yet. Given the situation alongside his generosity, I don't really intend to punish him. He seems to be a prisoner of circumstances and a spineless person, so I leave him be. I head to the village to see what job they can offer. The first thing I see is the inn. There I beat all men in a fist fight, and from an innkeeper listened to a story of a white-haired girl, Cyrilla, who was a princess, sorceress, and a witch at once, who found a new family in Kaer Morhen, saved a witcher and his beloved woman from a mob with a pitchfork. However, Geralt doesn't seem to buy the fairy tale. Next to the innkeeper, Dandelion is sleeping to a violent lullaby. He was teleported here by Triss shortly after Geralt, and didn't hear much about what happened after. He doesn't really care about the past and writes a new ballad for the future wedding. I might help him, but I need to know more about the couple. Julian, a wealthy merchant from Kavir. He is going to marry Alina, one of two daughters of the village chief Tobias Hoffman. Alina loves Julian's money, and Adam, a mediocre poet who is in love with her. And here is Adam.
Your hands fine and slender, your hips big and tender. Hell no!
Tobias's other daughter is Selena, who is not happy about the wedding and is jealous of Alina. I see. Alina here is something of, sleeping. Everybody wants her. And I see why. She has a unique NPC model. Julian gives her hard times because of the boy she adopted. The boy called Alvin.
Hi, Geralt. I have a new home.
No. Damn boy, you're the most entrepreneurial businessman I have seen. Taking advantage of trouble is the rarest skill even most adults don't possess. To give you the picture, the kids around here are playing a game called Kill the Elf, in which Alvin is always the Grandmaster, which means he is the best at hunting them down. Since now Geralt becomes an adoptive father, at least he is trying to be. He doesn't let Alvin play Kill the Elf or become a witcher. Even the dog Alvin got was not because of Geralt. Well, as a proper father, I go out to buy some cigarettes, the journey which will take about 20 years. I go back to the inn to speak about Alvin with Julian and find the ways to make peace with fish people and villagers. At the entrance, Selena and Julian are arguing about something.
Yeah, boy.
When the fight is over, turns out Selena hates her sister as she gets everything she wants: a rich wedding, a rich husband, and a ring with a huge diamond. Well, Selena doesn't even have a dress to wear. Well, she doesn't need one because she's ready to spread her legs to anybody who has 2 swords, white hair, and odor of booze. To continue this conversation in a more pleasant way, she asks for a decent ring. Well, I have one in my pockets which was taken from a cut finger of a stinky decomposing salamandra's body, but I am not sure it will work. Okay. At the inn, Dandelion stops Geralt to tell him that he had got a dimeritium amulet for Alvin from Triss before he left Vizima. This precious metal dimeritium blocks magical powers and in theory must help to control Alvin's powers. Additionally, Dandelion has a love letter from Shani to Geralt, which I'm sure the poet has already read. In her letter, she dreams about settling down with Geralt and Alvin to make a family together, until Alvin gets kidnapped again. The Witcher wants to answer that now he works on an important business project overseas, so he doesn't know when he will go back, and he needs to explain it in a way she doesn't get offended. So Geralt asks Dandelion for help. To tell you the truth, it's sad Geralt will never be able to live a normal life. His skills are vital to this world, and if not for him, hundreds or even thousands of Orens would stay in pockets of penny-pitching peasants. Anyway, take a look at this text and never tell again that Witchers don't have feelings. Speaking of the future family, Julian doesn't want to adapt Alvin because the boy feels off. There might be another reason Julian kept silent about. You see, it's impossible to focus while having sex when the boy sees you through the walls and gives commands with a demonic voice on how to do it right. So the Witcher promises to look after the boy because he has the amulet to control his magic powers and live a Witcher's life. Did I tell you Geralt found a friendly ghost to play dice poker with? Since now, Alvin is mindlessly chasing me everywhere, sometimes interrupting my poker with something like,
I dream about Alina. I see her in the fields, dancing in sunlight.
Right.
damn, it's tough to be a father. After some time, Julian needs help with Alina. Sure.
Alina went for a walk in the fields and hasn't returned.
Ah, you mean Witcher stuff. I go after her, looking at the fields and asking people around.
I need Alina. I need Alina. Alina.
Hey, not my work.
It seems she went missing. What I find out next catches me off guard. Turns out dolphins speak in dialects. Could you imagine that their intellect is so developed? Speaking of the Witcher, he later encounters a Noon Wraith,
Alina,
who turns out to be dead Alina. The ghost describes that she feels lost and cold, so Geralt explains she is not going to marry anytime soon. Alina gets annoyed by the fact and attacks. Even though she was slain, she can't go away. Her curse must be lifted. Going back to deliver terrible news, another scene hits me hard.
You killed my beloved Alina!
I didn't mean to!
Lawyer, you were jealous of her! Die, murderer!
Adam flees in panic and Geralt comes closer. From his story it gets clear, Selena cursed herself by killing Alina out of jealousy. We are obliged to face the worst part of a Witcher's job, to see what people might turn into because of their mistakes. Julian is devastated and begs to rest Alina's soul. I will try to do some extra and help Selena as well. There is one woman who can help, Abigail from Vizima outskirts, who moved in this place after Geralt saved her. She knows Alina used a magical mirror that could tell her the truth or guide her. One small problem, the mirror was broken and told only lies. Before the tragedy happened, it was shattered to pieces, but Geralt finds every piece to fix it, yet it doesn't work. Looking at the mirror, her current state distresses her so much that her soul refuses to rest. So Geralt goes to the all-knowing Lady of the Lake, who says lost souls are sensitive and poetry might help. Finally, Dandelion will prove himself to be useful. He rewrites his lyrics of the Feast of Life for the variant to the Doom of Death. Dandelion, as well as his voice actor, was underpaid, so they do only half of the job. Geralt must finish the lines after the poet. And then the voice actor does this.
His breast heaves, yet cold it remains. His lips move, his eyes engrossed. Returned to the world, but detained by death. Who is this man?
I would stay dead if I heard so much indifference towards me. Anyway, the poetry works and Alina's soul is rested. Selena asks for help too, but due to the bug developers haven't fixed in ages, or it was an intentional bug, she doesn't speak with Geralt, so no happy ending for her. Next I need to catch Adam.
Yes? She killed my Alina?
His fate will be decided by local authorities. Only one thing left to do, make peace between fish people and villagers. They need to make priceless contributions to the Lady of the Lake to prove their intentions are genuine. I make about 10 trips back and forth until she finally accepts the gifts. The conflict has a reason because of a local deity, Dagon, which needed human sacrifices and fish people acted above and beyond to please their idol. The goddess spills a drop of her blood and summons Dagon. The fight is a culmination of old-school games where you needed to eliminate devices or people supporting the boss, otherwise the boss is immortal. Here is the same pattern. Dagon falls and two communities will establish peace. At least they will have something good to celebrate despite the bloody wedding. The Lady of the Lake made Geralt her knight and gifted him a legendary sword, Irondite. Additionally, I could get laid with her, but I told too many stupid jokes about her ex-knights. Then she got offended when it happened third time in a row and thought of me as a village idiot. So So she never gifted me with her smile. Well then, she will never see what's inside Geralt's pants. That would be the joke to make her laugh. Geralt comes back to the village and encounters Berengar. The exiled witcher speaks his mind. He gave out the location of Kaer Morhen to Salamandra when he was hunting the beast in Vizima outskirts. Then he ran. He needed money and agreed to help Kalkstein to open the tower in the swamps. There they drove him to the wall again, and he had to bring them Alvin to save his skin. I have two options. I know I need to choose the second because it would reflect my real thoughts, but that would lead to a fight with him where he dies. I don't believe Geralt would do such a thing, because Berengar acted his own way as he thought it was right. Time will tell what consequences he will have to face. Berengar leaves and Geralt goes to Murky Waters. There he meets White Rayla, a scout who works for the Order. They've brought troops here to find and execute survived Scoia'taels. I say I saw nobody. She threatens Geralt to take action if he's lying, which makes me convinced I chose the right side when stood up for elves. In the village I understand I won't get my reward for the contract. The Ilven troops hold hostages and Alvin is among them. Non-humans are desperately fighting for life and even bought them some weapons and armor for money from Vivaldi's bank. Now they want to protect themselves, but keeping hostages is beyond my understanding. Luckily for them, their leader Torval doesn't want to fight. Yet the Order have them up against the wall. She changed her mind when Geralt proposes his help to avoid a massacre and to flee under the cover of the night. Dandelion, who is hiding behind houses, gives two options. Take Alvin and leave to let the battle happen to threaten innocent villagers' lives. Or step in, fight for non-humans' freedom, for villagers' peace, and banish those ravaging bigots. Before I made a decision, cultists attacked, and I had no way but to fight. Alvin got scared to death and teleported himself elsewhere. Even his amulet didn't stop him. Geralt stays to collect his reward from the knight's pockets, while Dandelion makes notes to profit in his future works about the great Geralt and his journeys and the greatest Dandelion who fought alongside. The poet and the witcher have no intention to stay here any longer. Given zero thanks for their help, they happily turn around and go to the boat to Vizima. White Rayla is waiting for them on the shore. The fanatics disobeyed her order to halt the attack. However, she calls Geralt a traitor for assisting the elves. You call your soldiers fanatics. Do you really share their beliefs? She says they need to hurry as Vizima's on fire and the civil war between non-humans and zealots is going full blast. Drifting away from the shore, they see more red knights coming to the village. When they come closer to Vizima, they see what happens to any place after Geralt's presence. Kings Foltest and Rodavit are here to prevent more deaths. Also, this dwarf seems to meet Geralt before, though he is afraid and hides behind a pole. From his words it gets clear. The Order suddenly started painting the ground red with the blood of non-humans, women and children. That's when even the most assimilated species rebelled. Look at Foltest's swagger. I want to be like him when I grow up. He is so tough and can dodge an arrow when the Scoia'taels ambush him. But the Grandmaster of the Flaming Rose comes to rescue. By his fire magic he keeps enemies aside, and by his moonwalk magic he proves you can't win him in a dance battle either. Grandmaster Jacques is sure he can lead Foltest's army to take the victory over Scoia'taels once and for all. Foltest feels something is fishy and agrees over his dead body. Geralt enters the city gates right in time. Foltest has got a job for him more important than any war. The king is one of the strongest poker dice players, so he offers a game. In case of a victory, Geralt gets 3,000 orens. Yeah, now I will win, yes. Oh yeah, and his daughter Ada the White, who is red, was turned into Striga again. Oh damn, come on. But the curse couldn't return by itself, somebody triggered it. Geralt needs to find out who did it and either leave the curse again or end her sufferings forever. The king will accept both options. Sure thing, but before that I give a hand to my friends such as Vivaldi, Shani, who is saving lives of injured, and that weird dentist who collects teeth of people and monsters alike for his treatment. In some way all of them are fighting for freedom and life without the Order. Torval came back alive to aid her people and thank Geralt for his help in her own way. I think if you are still watching, you understand what way I speak about, but it's not the right time and place. There is a war around, people are dying. And Kalkstein also there in the hot zone looking for a Striga. Near his lap on the tower, not the Striga, but a skinless mutant curses out Vincent's people. This creature is one of the first experiments of Azar Javed, the supreme weapon who obeys any command and knows no emotions. Why is he dead though? The waves of fanatics are striking elves like a storm which hits rocks, yet the Witcher changed the tides of war. A final blow penetrates White Rayla's heart as a sign of victory. The Striga is next. I have to go to the place I've spent half of the game in, the swamps. On the way to the swamps, Geralt sees this guy. If my memory serves me well, this guy's name is Uwe Enitulian Uwe Ubemuma Masas. So he and Geralt leave Vizima and head to the swamps to save the rest of the refugees from flames. They come across locals and get trapped. The Grandmaster and his people arrive just in time to save the day. It seems he's known Geralt of Rivia for all his life and clearly looks down upon Geralt's philosophy about what the real monster is and who deserves to die. Moreover, instead of speaking in essays, Jacques de Aldersberg prefers to act. He knows suspiciously too much about Geralt's mindset and his past, considering the fact Jacques sees the Witcher for the first time. The Grandmaster enlightens Geralt as to why the Order of the Flaming Rose exists: to follow the law, keep everything under control, and therefore prepare the world to the White Frost. Only righteous and good people will deserve to live in his perfect world. Others will be punished by their merit. The next step is the Striga Princess. The king's right hand Velirat closes Geralt inside the crypt until he does something. When Geralt saw her again, he realized peace was never an option because she wasn't fuckable anymore. Also, it didn't come into my mind that I could have been running around waiting until the sun come up and therefore lifting her curse as it was shown in the intro, which I have seen 2 times, dreaming of how good the TV series would be if they made the same thought out scenes. Instead, we have a bunch of Witchers who can't hear pandemonium in the hall nearby, while their brothers are doing everything on their own. The only explanation I have, they haven't been paid enough for this monster. Well, peace was never an option, as I said, and in the end I zoned out thinking about the TV show and forgot about saving her. It doesn't matter, as literally nobody was upset. They say the Witcher should have done it years ago. What really matters is that I found a journal of Ostrid, the person who cursed Ada the first time. In his diary there is a description of how to curse her one more time. After the fight, Velirat accepts the outcome and gives a message from the king. Geralt has to go to the old manor at the swamps and find the cure for the salamander disease there. At the entrance to the manor, Duet's guardian in tall grass. Geralt shares Ada's fate and says that he'd found a diary and now he knows who cursed her. Duet demands to give him away Ostrid's journal. Geralt didn't say whose journal it is. Duet speaks his mind. He's been working for Salamandra and preparing for the new order. Also, he cursed Ada the second time. And then he invites Geralt to his order. It's pathetic. He shows no reasons to respect him, so why join? Maybe Geralt sleeps with hoes, but he ain't a hoe himself. Nice try to extend your last seconds of life. Beyond Duet's corpse, the manor waits to open its secrets. Azar Javed is the first person who welcomes Geralt. He shows his latest work, White Rayla, who was resurrected and turned into a mutant. Azar teleports away and leaves me to fight. Those mutants are similar to Witchers. They've got amplified speed and strength, but their lack of experience and overall incompleteness makes them an insufficient tool. Coming closer to the main building, Geralt sees Yavin and his people who are fighting the mutants. Yavin wants to help as the main gates are closed, so he takes Geralt to the secret entrance to the hideout they'd found. Eventually we find the secret path and Geralt steps inside alone. I take all elixirs I can, looking something like that, and prepare for the final battle. In the lab, Azar one last time threatens Geralt that if the Witcher doesn't give up, everybody he loves will suffer. I'm sure Geralt has heard this line so many times it became his prayer. Suddenly Berengar turns up to help to one of us. He assists Geralt in return for accepting him the way he is. I see why everybody was so afraid of Javed. He casts spells and stuns and does it too often. However, I found a legendary armor and filled Geralt's body with all types of biohazard substances. Also, the place is an odd choice. I mean, Azar Javed's source of power is fire. And here we are under the ground, around the swamps again. He could at least decorate the place with fire. Didn't he play Sims? While I was fighting, a few Azar's farts were enough to kick Berengar out of the game. Maybe that's what the rogue Witcher deserves, but it's not my place to judge. Out of revenge, Geralt sends Azar to the place where he will source his powers forever. The hell. Looting diamonds from Azar's pockets, Geralt hears an incoming call through Azar's magical mirror. Coming closer, he sees who Javed has been working with all this time. The Grandmaster Jacques. Jacques needs more mutants, even skinless ones, to take Vizima over. The Grandmaster, protected by his hitmen, prepares to strike Geralt and elves. He proposes the shelter inside his cathedral to anybody who wants to live, and soon becomes this. Behind the cathedral, Radovid and Foltest are making up a thoroughly thought-out plan, where Geralt runs like hell, mindlessly swinging his swords in an attempt to penetrate the Aldersberg heart to get 10,000 warrants.
Don't overdo it. I'm a fucking king and I deserve some respect. 8,000 orens to the Witcher.
In return, Foltest will grant Radovid pieces of lands, whereas Yevin will be granted clemency and amnesty to most non-humans. Geralt and Yevin set off and encounter Siegfried and his warriors. Siegfried completely forgot about following his once scrupulous integrity and becomes a regular brainwashed soldier who can distinguish creatures he swore to fight once from his friends. But his death stare makes me regret my choices, because if I'd stood on his side, he would have realized what his order has turned into and helped Geralt. To get to the cathedral, Yevin and Geralt need to cross the sewers because their way is blocked by a burning barricade. It's kinda lame that art is almost never a tool to make a shortcut, but only a weapon. So the way that could take about 2 minutes takes 20 and includes a boss fight with an overweight Squidward. The tentacles hit Yevin and he starts bleeding. He can't go any further and steps back to his people to lick the wounds, while Geralt enters the cathedral alone. Behind the doors, either peasants or noble people have no worries and just have fun, while outside the walls there are havoc and death. The Grandmaster welcomes anybody who's looking for shelter, but he doesn't care about people. Oh no, he needs them to make more kinds of perfect creatures and face up to the White Frost with those who can withstand the temptation of sins. He had his 15 minutes of fame. Let's finish him, guys? Geralt draws the sword and...
Huh?
The Grandmaster jumped into the far future to show what he was preparing for. This is future Vizima covered in ice. Once again, Jacques insists on his rightness, that the end justifies the means, and teleports to the cathedral nearby. Geralt runs after him and sees Shani. She explains all of this is nothing but just an illusion inside the Grandmaster's mind. Then together they follow through the blizzard and see other werewolf-like creatures called Skullheads. According to Abigail, they are the future humankind. On his way, Geralt meets the consequences of his actions, those he saved and those he fought. The friends will join and foes will stay behind. Unfortunately, nobody he drank with, there would be an army to establish. Occasionally he meets Jacques, and more it becomes clear who he is, or who he was. The boy who got in trouble dozens of times, who lied in the dirt, twisted with pain, while Geralt was trying to get laid. The boy who wanted to have a dog and a normal family without fears, with a caring father, but not the one who goes away to wrestle against drowners in the swamps for a few months. But they say, like father like son, the road to hell paved with good intentions and other pointless sayings, so maybe that's not what Geralt wanted to see and taught him to be, but that's what the Witcher gets. It's rather unclear how he achieved his status, yet with such powers there are no limits. He doesn't say plainly he is Alvin. There are too many proofs to believe that it's true. First, he knows Geralt too well. Second, we have only 2 people who are sources of trouble, of such mighty abilities, and I have never seen them in one room. Additionally, the game he used to play, Kill the Elf, where he was the Grandmaster, gives food for thoughts. It's worth mentioning while teaching Alvin, Geralt said a few lines that Jacques twisted in his own way. For example, if Geralt says,
"Your visions are a gift, not a curse."
I'll remember that.
I never asked for these visions, this gift.
But you chose how to use it.
Many times you insisted special gifts should be used for just causes. I chose the most just of causes, saving millions of lives.
Sure, he became a warrior through his journey, but something was broken inside him, maybe his heart, and honestly, I feel sad about what Alvin has become. Jacques' initial goal was a mass exodus south. That's where humans can survive, therefore non-humans will stay behind and perish, and therefore he would rule the rest once and for all. Before the final encounter, Geralt meets Vincent, who turns into a werewolf, and he joins the couple. Those visions of Shani and Vincent can't enter the heart of the vision, so they leave the mind. But thanks to big-hearted Jacques, he places the bonfire inside his vision, so Geralt can prepare for the fight. So kind of him. At the ruins, the Grandmaster gives the last chance to join him, and Geralt says to suck his silver sword for monsters. The Grandmaster doesn't stand a chance against the Witcher from the Die, Restart, Repeat school. When Jacques runs out of health, Geralt sees the King of the Wild Hunt, the king who is depicted as the Death throughout the game. The king asks for Jacques' soul, and if Geralt agrees, and he does, the Wild Hunt says this:
"Take him. I don't care what fate he meets.
From now on, The soul of Jacques de Aldersberg, whom you knew under another name, belongs to me. Do your duty.
Gladly.
That sword is for monsters.
Remember the amulet Triss gave to Alvin? This is the one. Probably the only thing that helped him stay relatively sane or as a memory of kind people. The vision can't be held any longer. Dandelion's face is the first thing Geralt sees. From his words, it's clear that Jacques and Geralt were dreaming. Indeed, staying inside the illusion but not physically in the future. I bet that vision was the tool of Jacques to manipulate people to join his side. Foltest gained control of the city, and Yavin was keeping an eye on Geralt while he was off. And when Dandelion showed up, he escaped. Geralt says once again about the Dimeritium pendant that looks the same as Alvin's, but older. It all fits. And then Geralt picks up the Witcher's secrets from the body. Mission accomplished. The scrolls were finally taken back. And there was something else about a guy Leo or something like that, but who cares? Dandelion is writing a new poem about the Great Witcher, but Geralt just wants to rest and take his 8 grand from Foltest.
For your toil, a worthy pouch of gold.
Your Highness. Master. Farewell, sire.